Now recording for the only podcast where brevity is the soul of stupid, see for yourself. I am your host, Gregory Samsa, and I am joined today by...
LD.
LD, the D that we all want to L. I have a movie here for you today, LD. Are you prepared to hear about it?
I am prepared to hear about all of it.
All right, well then let's... The name of the movie is Creature. It is a 1985 sci-fi horror film, and the blurb for this movie goes as follows. Two different crews are sent on a mission to space, but something may ensure that they don't come back to Earth.
Two different crews, okay. I mean, first thing I think of is like Alien, you know.
I like how just inherently in the blurb, there's already tension. Like, there's two different crews. Why do we have two different crews?
They gotta be fighting. It can't just be us versus like the monster. Has to be, I don't trust you, you don't trust me. There's a battle for authority, you know, and they're gonna be fighting amongst themselves for the first half hour before they realize that like they need to band together.
We've kind of skipped a few steps here. Just to be clear, I've not seen this movie. LD, have you seen this movie?
I haven't. I mean, the movie's called Creature, and from like the look of the poster, like this could be anywhere on like the spectrum of good or bad movies.
It's a handsome poster.
Yeah, I mean, I got like the one that's all blue with like little monster in the middle with like, what was this, lanternfish teeth? That's what it looks like.
So I have a completely different poster, actually.
You got the red one?
Yeah, I got like the orangish reddish one. My tagline for this, I love this tagline. First you die, and then the terror begins. And that's so cool.
It kind of makes me think this is like the people that die come back somehow or something. Like it's some kind of like cosmic horror thing.
Like zombies or something, or maybe something worse than that.
Like mutations, like they come back and now they're with the creature or something, or they're part of the creature's body now.
Oh god, that would be so fucking cool. I love that idea just on the face of it. I also am a huge fan of Fate's Worse Than Death.
Oh yeah. I always think of like The Fly, you know? Like towards the end, like he's all like melty, can't talk, and he's just like pulling the gun to his face. Like,
oh, with that little claw hand he had. Jesus fucking Christ.
Yeah, like that was... my little teenage brain was not ready when I saw that. Like, wow, this is scarier than being alive. Nice.
I was a teenager when I watched that movie also. I did not realize that, like, I could feel so bad for a character that up till this point I kind of saw as a villain. You know, because I'm young and I try to, like, categorize things like that. Who's the bad guy in this movie? And I'm like, it's the guy who gets turned into a fly and he's, you know, trying to get this woman and he's, like, yelling at her and all these things. And he's gross and nasty. And then he pulls that gun up to his head and I'm like, oh no, he's suffering. Like, that's terrible.
Yeah. I would love to spend all day talking about The Fly, but we should focus on... I have a different poster, and it's got really cool like space backdrop, and the tagline for it is, "It's been sleeping peacefully on a moon of Saturn for 2,000 centuries until now." Which 2,000 centuries is what, like 2 million? I can't do math. Yeah, it's like 200,000 years. Yeah, 200,000 years on a moon of Saturn. So, like, I guess there's two ships or two crews.
Yeah, so that's a good question. Is it going to be two separate ships that are sent out? Or is it going to be one ship with just two separate crews?
I feel like one of the ships is going to break down and, like, the other one's trying to save them. And so they bring that crew on board. And then they come across, like, this moon on Saturn where, like, this monster is at. Or maybe the ships crash down on the moon and that's where they find them. And when they bring everyone on board, they've also brought, like, the creature on board.
Yeah, like there's already a ship that's, like, gone out and it's ahead of the other one. And so they have to send a second ship because they're not responding. And so they go to, like, try to save them. Maybe that's, like, something.
Yeah, this is generally, like, Event Horizon type situation.
Oh, I love Event Horizon.
This ship has disappeared, but now we know where it is. Let's go find them. Except, I guess this time they're not going to find corpses. They're going to find, like, an actual crew that's still around. And maybe one of them comes back and they're not right.
You know, given my history and the places that I've worked, almost all of the different industrial or, like, unsafe working conditions all have very specific rules that you have to follow. And they don't just come up with these rules arbitrarily. Somebody dies or gets maimed beyond belief. And then they come up with a rule that says, yep, you can't put your hand inside of the meat grinding machine. And so I would like a situation where, like, the first crew goes out and they're just like, you know, they can do whatever they want. There aren't any rules, whatever. And then the second crew goes out and they have all these rules in place place that they kind of bitch and moan about, but the guy who's running the ship is like, hey, we have these in place because people have been hurt.
Yeah, I would love for it to be like completely like second ship is just OSHA. It's like, yeah, we are not going to lose another ship because this is expensive and people's lives are precious. And the first ship, they're just like, yeah, I mean, we're just glad you're here, but like we're not going to follow any rules. And then that's how people end up dying.
I do like the idea of a stark contrast between the two crews. I would like to see that. Some of these older movies don't do a great job of representing certain demographics. Do you think that we'll get some diversity here and some good representation? And what are your highest hopes for that? Or your deepest fears?
So I'm not really sure exactly how connected to like Hollywood this is versus how independent it is. I could be surprised. It could end up being like a very diverse crew, but if it's connected to Hollywood, I fully expect there to be like one black character. It's sad to say, but that happens a lot, especially in the 80s. As far as ages go, I hope it's like a wide range. I hope it's like Alien, where you've got like a few old guys, a bunch of young people. Maybe there's like a kid in there. Maybe that kid has a dog in there. I have no idea. Like this might be like some type of family ship situation, like Lost in Space, where it's like, you know, the crew that comes out, they're there as like a unit. But hopefully it's not just gonna be a whole bunch of white dudes. You know, hopefully there's gonna be some women in there. Supposedly there's gonna be some people of color in there. Do you know who the director is of this movie?
It's William Malone.
William Malone.
William. I'm sorry, I mispronounced that.
William Malone.
Let's see some of the other stuff William Malone has done before Creature. He did Scared to Death.
Never heard of it.
Another movie nobody's ever seen.
I love the name though.
He did I Want to Hold Your Hand.
Oh wow, is it like a Beatles documentary or something?
Probably, sounds about right. He also did Hollywood Boulevard, and those are the three films that he's done before this one. And I'm sorry, he did not direct Hollywood Boulevard. He worked on it, so he was not the director.
Well, I guess I'll go into this relatively blind because can't tell if this is like an independent director or Hollywood director.
Bits of information are hard to come across. He's done some other stuff since then, and probably the most popular is let me make sure that he directed this one instead of putting my foot in my mouth. Yes, he did Fear.com.
Oh, wow. I was not expecting that. Fear.com, that was like 2000. It was like the first bridge into like, you know, horror about the internet and like websites and people getting disappeared. I feel like I saw it maybe, but I don't remember anything about it.
I did watch Fear.com, and it was, I hate saying this, but this was kind of before I was a big movie guy. I was just sort of casually watching this movie. It was very forgettable.
Honestly, I may have seen it, but I don't remember it. I feel like I remember the poster more than anything else.
But the reason I bring up the representation is, you know, you brought up Alien, you know, pretty quickly, and like even the names here, you know, Alien, Creature, kind of similar. Alien is sort of notorious for having a pretty wide gambit of different characters, up to and including a cat. You know, Jonesy. We love Jonesy.
One of my favorite parts about that movie, like, there's not a whole lot of sci-fi films with pets on board.
I don't know if you know this about me. I'm huge into the Alien franchise. I love it so much. There are two women on board the Nostromo in Alien. Ripley and the other character whose name I forget. Just to show you how deep I am into this, I forget character's name.
Is it like a doctor or something?
She's not the doctor. Unfortunately, she gets kind of bad representation. She's mostly just there to like sort of yell and complain and be scared. She's sort of our damsel in distress character. Seems kind of like she's there to be like a foil to Ripley because Ripley's like a woman of action and this other woman is not. In a very smart choice not to include this scene in the original cut of the film. There was like a weird like rapey scene between the alien and this other woman.
I'm so glad they didn't go that route.
Yep, they cut that out. But in Aliens, in Alien 2, they show like dossiers for all of the different characters who died in Alien 1. Big spoilers for Alien 1. Everybody dies except for Ripley and the cat.
Yeah, I've seen the Alien movies, but
they reveal that that woman was a transgender woman.
Okay.
And they didn't need to include that. They didn't, like, it's literally in a blink and you'll miss it little piece of document, nothing. It's not part of her character at all. It's literally just in there. They mention it. But just to talk about, if we're going to talk about different representations and a wide gambit of diversity in a cast, Alien 1 had a pretty wildly wide gambit of characters.
It was very, I mean, it was 1979. So, like, I feel like the 70s, there was like a wave of them trying to sort of make sure that, like, in general, like, America was seen in its entirety. They didn't do great, but they did a lot better than before. And I feel like 80s they sort of rolled it back a little bit just because there's like a lot of sophomore humor that decade.
I don't know when the AIDS epidemic happened, but that's probably a big, like, affecting contributor to this.
Yeah, Nancy Reagan and all that. I feel like that was probably 80s. So you would have seen like more diverse cast maybe in the 70s than you wouldn't see in the 80s.
Yeah, so the AIDS epidemic began in 81. So yeah, right at the start of the 80s basically. People were like, yeah, don't show gay people cuz they're the reason, they're
Oh my God, Nancy Reagan.
the propaganda. I don't remember, but I think Princess Diana maybe really changed the way that people looked at the AIDS epidemic when she basically called out and said, "Give these people a hug because they need it, and it's not going to hurt you."
I mean, there's also lots of more 90s TV shows would have like main characters who are gay. It started to happen like a lot more because in general you wouldn't see that before that.
So what I'm getting from you is that we're going to have some sweet, sweet gay representation in this movie, and it's going to break the mold and say, "Fuck you, 1980s, gay people as far as the eye can see, just a myriad of gay people, and not on the crew that gets killed off right in the beginning. Not those guys, the guys that save everybody and are really helpful and cool."
In 1985, I have no idea. It's a toss-up, but like my prediction is it's gonna be mostly white actors. That would be par for the course for 1980s. But I'd love to be wrong.
Very safe prediction. I agree with that. Is our creature going to talk? We going to get like a creature that can communicate with humans in a way that's articulate and easily understood?
The poster I have, it looks like one of those lanternfish creatures, and I can imagine it's gonna be legible. It's gonna make some noises. Oh my God, it will make noises. The way your poster sounded, like you die and then the horror starts. That sounds like the thing. That sounds like people are going to be like walking around with the monster inside them. So maybe we'll hear the monster, the creature, but it'll be trying to sound like us.
Yeah, I would love it not to assimilate the people, but rather to sort of like enslave them after death. Maybe it has a way of like keeping them alive, quote unquote. So like when other creatures that look like these things that it's killed come around, it can lure them in. And it has the ability not to talk directly itself, but to like control them to speak. Like it doesn't know how our language works. It just, our brain is kept alive and it manipulates that information.
There's that creepy, the more I'm thinking about it, there's all these really creepy fish. There's one where like it has like a lure on its head, and that looks like a baited fish or something to like lure larger fish in. And I feel like that could definitely be the situation where like the creature itself is somewhere else, but each of the people that it's sort of like consumed and enslaved, they're like the lures. They're gonna like draw people in. Probably it's gonna do some kind of sex thing where they're gonna like, hey, you look pretty. Let's go over here so we can be alone and bam, nom nom nom. Or they're just gonna do some kind of paranoid thing where they turn the rest of them against each other, and that way it's easier to pick them off.
I like that. So that you've presented two different ideas. So the first idea works better if it's like a second crew coming to save the first. The second idea you had works better if it's two crews showing up at the same time to compete with one another, and they're like being manipulated to sort of kill each other off so the creature can come around and scavenge the pickings after that. I do always love when stories try to create their own type of predator species of some kind, so their own type of like animal to like kill other animals. They sort of like pick animals that we already have existing and take things from them and make a little hodgepodge of all that. And I always wonder, like, why don't we see more scavengers and like scavenging tactics? It's usually like apex predators that have like blades and claws all over the place and they just kill the living hell out of everything. But it's very rarely an animal that's waiting around for other animals to kill things. I'm not here to fight anybody. I just want to eat the dead things.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like if it's just one creature, then yeah, they would be trying to turn like the tide because they're wildly outnumbered. So they're trying to make sure that at least they've got fewer they have to contend with by themselves. Like that's the main reason why Ripley wins at the end is like because early on, is picking them off one by the sheer number of weapons that alien has that keeps it alive for so long. Like the whole acid blood and everything. Like it's got all the cheat codes.
It has the Grand Theft Auto like You ever do that when you were a kid where you had like a friend who knew all the cheat codes for Grand Theft Auto because they had internet access, but you didn't? So you're like, oh, please, and you didn't realize that like you can just write them down from the internet. This guy didn't learn the cheat codes himself. Like he just Googled it basically, I remember that and thinking like, wow, this guy's so cool. He actually has like the different codes to summon a tank in Grand Theft Auto. Wow, that's so crazy.
Yeah, I love the zero gravity where you'd tap a car and it would fly into space.
So I feel like we're drawing a lot from Alien in our predictions. Do you ever wonder if maybe I'm not trying to say this is gonna happen? I'm not, not very likely. But if I am allowed to make wild predictions, and I am, I would like to venture a guess that's a little outside of the wheelhouse here. Because you said this and it made me think, what if instead of it being a creature in the traditional sense, it's more like a ghost?
Oh, Space Ghost. Okay.
And it's a ghost. It's not killing for food. It's killing because it's lonely. There aren't other ghosts on this like singular planet they're visiting. There's nothing else there.
Oh, it's trying to populate the planet with like friends, basically.
It wants the homies, man. It is a homosexual, as it were.
That'd be interesting. I don't feel like it'd be way too deep for a movie that's called just Creature. I mean, like,
Well, I mean, we fell for the trap immediately. We were like, Creature, Alien, they're the same movie. That's basically what we've been doing so far.
yeah,
Already, even us giganto brains here at the See For Yourself, the smartest men who've ever lived, the greatest film watchers of all time!
you said it, I didn't.
We fell right into the trap, you know?
I would love for this to be an art film, actually. I would love for it to be like we're going in thinking it's gonna be an Alien ripoff, and they take it into like this, like 6 dimension otherworldly. They're not just being attacked by a creature, but like the cosmos are like pulling them out of reality. Maybe they're replaced by creatures.
What if it's a man who found, like, when he came to this planet, he found a like wormhole into the 4th dimension, and they're like, there's this creature that's killing us off. Oh my god, we're so scared. But it's not a creature, it's just a person who's living in the 4th dimension, and he doesn't understand that he's killing people on accident.
Yeah, these would be all great, like Twilight Zone or X-Files episodes. Like each one of these things that we're discussing. I feel like probably we're gonna be disappointed.
I feel like if I were a filmmaker in the 1980s, that's all I would do. People would be like, "Hey, can you write us like a movie with like a quick and easy thing?" And I'd be like, "No, but I can make you a very compelling Star Trek episode." Was there ever a Star Trek episode that you thought was like particularly compelling that you really enjoyed?
It's funny you should ask. I'm actually I'm a huge Trekkie.
Oh, okay.
You said like really compelling, like something that's close to like a creature type situation.
Well, we don't have to do that. I mean, I'm basically just pushing rope at this point. I'm trying to,
Oh yeah.
kill time here. But like, yeah. I mean, sure. Was there a particular?
One of the most iconic ones is there's like an original series episode. They go to this planet and there's all these miners and they're like really pissed off because a lot of their people are getting like eaten by this monster or like acid burned by this monster. And you find out that they've been like mining through this planet and digging through all these minerals to like take with. And it turns out like they've been killing like this creature's young and like like just taking the raw materials and taking them out. And this creature's like trying to defend itself. It's like, these are my babies. And the only way they could find that out is because Spock's on the planet. He meets with it, touches it, and does the mind meld thing. Is like, yeah, this planet has an organism and you're like causing it to suffer. So that's why they're fighting back.
What do you mean you're all out of fresh ideas? That brings us to a great point. You've pointed out, this could be like Alien. And one of the biggest faults of Alien is that the alien doesn't really have any motivation. It's just a killer. It's just like a tiger that's been left loose on the ship. It's not an intelligent being. It doesn't have feelings or emotions or motivations. It's just scared and it's killing things. We don't even know if it's scared. Can it feel fear? We don't know. Will our creature have a motivation?
I mean, I feel like the alien from Alien it's a breeder. There's lots of them like that where they just want to procreate. They want to like have babies and like make those babies go out into the world and eat and then breed their own babies. Like that's the deal with that one. Its motivation is terrifying, but very like nature based. So I mean, that could be what we're going up against.
Is that what you're considering here for Creature? Creature is just going to be like, I'm here to eat fucking shit?
I'm just hoping for some great special effects. Story-wise, I'm not expecting a lot. I'm hoping for like good special effects, maybe some good cheesy lines.
Some good one-liners. Come on. Yeah.
It's an 80s sci-fi movie. Like what else are they laying in front of me?
Hell yeah. I'm sorry. I feel like I kind of with the Star Trek thing, my favorite Star Trek episode, they go to this planet, all the great Star Trek episodes start this way. They go to this planet, and when they get there, all of the people on the planet, they're just like regular humans, effectively, and they talk like regular humans, except they speak in references to this very, very popular book. And that's like key to understanding their language. And normally, they're like, we just have these automatic, translators, these automatic communicators that we use. But it doesn't seem to understand that thing he just said about this or the other. And they learn that it's a highly culturally significant book.
Okay, is this the Next Generation one with the guys speaking in memes, or is this? Do you remember which cast this one is?
I can't remember. I'm pretty big on Next Generation, even though I think Deep Space Nine is probably the better.
So it's not a book. It's basically like historical events. Like any time something has happened in like the in the history of these people, they've sort of like that's become part of their culture. They're basically talking about memes. Like anytime you see like a meme online and it's using say SpongeBob or something, but they're not talking about SpongeBob. They're talking about like something else with that meme story.
Because it's become culturally significant to us. We all know that like Squidward hates living next door to SpongeBob, and that relates to how some people don't like living. And now you're relating these characters to. So it's like a metaphor, but with added parts, right?
Exactly. So that's one of the best Next Generation episodes. And in that one, Picard's like doing the whole diplomat thing where he's cut off from the rest of the ship and they're like trying to figure out if they're like a threat or not. And like their whole thing is they want to join with other people as like, compatriots. But to do that, they have to put themselves in like a moment of crisis where they have to fight together in order like to become closer. And yeah, like their communicators have like the whole language interpreting thing, but that's just for like word to word, like dialect to dialect. It doesn't take into account like the whole, references thing. So it's
Colloquialisms and other like, what are some things that you would say that like somebody from like a different culture might not understand? Like easy peasy might not be easily understood by people because it's just the peasy part is nonsense. It doesn't make any sense.
yeah. So that one goes to like the work of trying to go from, misunderstandings to, speaking a common tongue. Even though you may not know everything about them, listen, you fight with me, we bleed together, we're brothers now, that sort of thing.
And it just reminds me of like some of my favorite comedians talk about how language is confusing, and like George Carlin. I love George Carlin. A lot of his humor is like language is weird, right? And here's some great examples of why it's weird. And so when I see like a show like Star Trek that can do anything, it can go nuts. It can have a monster. It can have like a big space empire. It can have anything. And it chooses to be like, words are weird. Let's talk about words. I think that's so cool.
Yeah, I wish there were more episodes that were specifically about basically it's diplomacy and multiculturalism like on a scope that you didn't really see a whole lot on that show.
There is a sci-fi author who died recently, actually, Ursala K. Le Guin, and I'm probably mispronouncing her name, but Ursula.
Very familiar. Did she write for Star Trek?
I don't know if she did, but I know that she wrote the Earthsea franchise.
Oh, okay.
One of her big arguments when she's discussing writing and discussing like sci-fi as a genre is that she is frustrated by stories like Star Wars, where it's all about like a very direct, like they understand sci-fi only through the lens of what is literally happening on Earth. So like Star Wars has all those like references to fascism and Nazis and things like that, and she does not like that. She's like, sci-fi is so big and so wild, and you can write literally anything, and it doesn't have to be a direct, oh, I just picked up Nazis and put them in a different uniform, and now that's the Empire.
The whole good and evil, like big action movie, like Star Wars does a lot of good things, but in general, that could be like a fantasy series, and it really wouldn't change anything about it. Like there wouldn't, like you could translate all that to like Lord of the Rings or something.
And just like a lot of fantasy writers in general, not just sci-fi, are really quick to be like, well, colonialism's bad. Let me just put colonialism as the villains. Not to say that that's not like, yes, colonialism is bad, and yes, it's good to have like good reference material from the real world in your stories, but Ursula was really big on its sci-fi, go wild, like create civilizations that didn't create globalization or didn't create fascism or didn't create socialism or something completely new that you just come up with on your own, because it is a new world. You can do anything. And I love Ursula for that. And I'm probably paraphrasing her a lot. I need to do more reading of her understanding of this, because it is a perspective that I'm incredibly interested in. So we're coming up on that time. Are there any last minute predictions that you want to make? Any just quick like, oh, I thought about this and this would be kind of cool. I already said the thing about ghosts, so that's ruined for you. You can't take that. It's mine. No. Original character, do not steal.
I love this called Creature because we're essentially watching a creature feature, and it's sci-fi and it's 80s. They could go predictable routes, but I'd love for it to be, even though it's supposed to be like on Saturn's moon or something, what if like it's buried and like these two crews, they're the ones that like draw it out. That like it could end up being a situation where like they could have just rescued this crew or whatever, but like they wake it up, sort of like a mummy type situation, where like if they just like left it all alone, not tried to like dig up whatever precious minerals or whatever, disturb this creature, it could end up being like the creature was man, because they invaded this person's home.
I would really like to see a situation where the creature's motivation is like protecting its homeland or protecting its kids or something like that, sort of humanizing the villain, quote unquote. In 1985, probably not. The creature is going to be like, oh man, I love killing. I love it. Killing all these humans is my favorite. And I hate them because they're humans. And I don't have any thoughts or feelings because I'm a monster. And this is how monsters work in 1985, where there's no nuance. Nuance died in, I don't know, 1600 or something. And it wasn't brought back to life until 2023.
I feel like it's possible. I feel like it's very possible that it's going to end up being a nuanced story. I guess we'll just have to find out for ourselves. We'll have to see for ourselves.
Well, with that said, let's go ahead and call it here. We'll split up. We'll go watch the movie, and we'll come right back, and we'll talk more about the movie. And there'll be some cool music connecting this ending bit where I stop the recording with the part where I start the recording again after having seen it. There'll be music there. You can listen to the music if you want. You can choose not to listen to the music. It's going to be about 10 seconds. It's almost always about 10 seconds of music. You can enjoy it. You do that. It'll probably be like, I don't know, like a I don't know. I haven't put the music in yet.
Well, I'm gonna be moving in a groove into it. So yeah, get it going.
We love music. Hold on. Final prediction. The monster loves music too. I don't know how they're gonna fit that into the movie. I can say whatever I want right now. I don't get paid for this shit. I don't have a boss. I'm the boss. We'll go right into the movie right now. So we return from the depths of the creature. We return from the depths of creature depths. This was not very well thought out, clearly, on my behalf, not on Creature's behalf. What did you think of the movie? Tell me, did it strike you in any particular way? What are your thoughts? Hit me with it.
I was depressed by how much I predicted came true. It's basically, it's an Alien ripoff, but it's not without some merits. I tend to find even like minor details applaudable, even though it's like, this went direct to video, I imagine. I don't know.
There were definitely a couple of little things that really excited me about the movie. I loved the use of color in the lighting.
Oh yeah, very blue.
Lots of very dramatic colors, that like cold blue, and then those like warm oranges and yellows, and like something about it I love seeing that anytime it's used. And I thought that the movie, while yes, it is a lot of blues, I think generally, if I had to be critical, I would say this was probably them trying to cover up for the fact that this was something of a more budget production and that it wasn't going to look very good. So they had to use those dramatic colors to sort of make the eye not pay attention to a lot of the low production value in the set design.
Yeah, it was very like, oh, they went to like an industrial site, like a lot of low budget sci-fi movies, and they just filmed a lot of scenes at some industrial site and lit it really darkly and had like some smoke machines come through. But yeah, they had like some yellowish orange moments. Like the sex scene was just orange. It felt like the light from Saturn was being cast upon them, but the rest of the movie is very blue.
I was so close because like I'm watching the sex scene and I'm like, oh god, it's a lower budget movie. We're probably gonna have 2 or 3 more sex scenes in this fucking thing, and they only had the one sex scene, and it was relatively tasteful. Like there was still an essence of like the male gaze in there, but like they lowered the camera down to her naked chest and then faded to black before showing anything, and I was like, oh well, that's nice. They didn't, that's cool. And then later, one of the women is just like fully naked standing there.
It's the same girl, because like no, it's someone else. It was Susan Delambre. So Susan's the one that we see like just without a helmet and then without any clothes on the moon, just like staring at John or something.
So you were absolutely right about like the using the dead people as a lure to entrap people. It was only sometimes that they would actually like entrap them so that the monster could get them. A lot of times it was they would entrap them and then the person themselves would put the mini alien on their neck.
Little brain sucker.
Yeah, which feels very lazy to me. But also, I feel that it's very lazy to have the characters fight off the alien with a gun.
Yeah, the power tools with the silencer on them.
You know, they had the security officer who had their own gun, and then they had like the dopey little nothing guns that they came across.
Oh yeah, Bryce had like a machine gun. Yeah.
One of my favorite things in the movie is that Bryce is that silent protagonist. We talked about that, and I fall for it every time. You know, a character's not talking a lot, and I'm just like, oh, that's so mysterious. God, I wonder what's going on in their head. I bet they're just like me. I bet. And at the end of the movie, I was right. Bryce is just like me. They're like, where the fuck were you, Bryce? What the hell, Melanie? Melanie Bryce is like, oh, I went over here and then I came back over here and that's how I, saved you in the end. And they're like, okay, but that shouldn't take that long. What took you so long? And she just goes, I got lost. I got lost. I didn't know where I was going.
Yeah. I feel like they were trying to build some tension and then relieve it with a joke, which I kind of was thinking, like, are they going to have one final scare? It's like, nah.
And that's what Alien did, right? Alien did the, like, Ripley got out safe and everything's okay. And then, oh no, one final scare. The alien's with her in the escape pod. Ah, fuck. And this movie a little bit did that too, but not exactly. Did you see the book that she was reading, Scared to Death? Scared to Death is the other movie that the guy made before this movie. Yeah, I think that was a little bit of product placement.
Yeah, she said she read it 3 times, only book she brought on board, and the other guy's like, yeah, that'll rot your brain.
What did you think of the design of the alien itself?
They show like a little bit at a time. First it's just like, oh, look, here's some dripping. It's like, oh, look, here's like this sort of meat concoction. Super long neck. It's like, oh, okay, all right, that's looking more like Ridley Scott's Alien. And then by the end of it, it's like, okay, this is very, very much like Alien, but kind of like Godzilla. When they're getting electrocuted, the way they like stumbles around, it's definitely a guy in a suit. It's got a long tail, long neck. It felt like a little Godzilla creature. And of course, it's got that a sort of toothy grin thing, sort of like those little fish creatures.
An amount of respect needs to be paid to the original Alien or the xenomorph from Alien, in that the actor that they had play the alien was like, what's the appropriate way to say this? He was a guy with sort of a scary body, right? Bolaji Badejo, whose name I'm probably butchering. This is my first time saying it out loud. He was a very tall man with very long features,
Oh, okay. They're like big arms or something, or
he had very long arms, a very slender frame, long fingers, and so a lot of the way that the alien looks, he's 6'10". In case you're wondering. And a lot of the intimidation factor of the alien comes from his just natural body. And it's unfortunate that and this happens with almost any actor who plays a creature in a creature features, he doesn't get any credit for this. But yeah, a lot of the scare factor for the original Xenomorph comes from him.
I mean, there's some really good physical actors that use the nature of their body to sort of fall into these good monster roles. Like Doug Jones famously is in a lot of movies, a lot of horror movies and sci-fi, and usually they use his natural tall, very slender frame to sort of put any sort of makeup and effects on top of them to sort of simulate really realistic looking creatures. Yeah, it was in the Hellboy franchise. Let's see, he's also in The Shape of Water. He's on Star Trek Discovery. Each one of those, he's playing an alien or a creature or something with just really otherworldly body sort of thing. You rarely see him outside of the makeup with just his natural face, but dude's very tall, very thin, good actor.
Oh yeah, I mean I love him as Abe.
Plays like that fish creature thing in the Hellboy movies.
Abe is such a delicate character, and he's got so much nuance to his feelings and his expression, and I think that he captures that very well. I just love Abe as a contrast to Hellboy because he's very sensitive and thoughtful, and Hellboy's action man, and Abe is a water creature, and Hellboy's a fire creature. I don't know. I think that whoever's writing Hellboy, you're doing a great job. You're doing it up,
Yeah, and he plays the pale man from Pan's Labyrinth. The guy with the eyes in his hands.
Yes.
So impish, just
like one of the problems with the alien in Creature is that it is overtly threatening. It has these big scary fucking teeth, and that feature alone is like enough to be inherently, you can tell this is a killing creature. It is going to hurt you. And a lot of the characters that Doug Jones portrays, it's kind of hard to tell just how threatening they are exactly. They're scary looking, certainly. They don't have like swords coming out of their eyeballs and shit, you know what I mean?
although he does play this really ancient vampire in the TV series version of What We Do in the Shadows.
Yes, I have seen that character.
Yeah, I love that.
It is a very funny role he plays for that too. But he's like one of the more like serious sort of vampires out of the group, because the rest of them have like silly and goofball kind of characters, and then his is like he's like an old vampire who's kind of more serious.
He's the Orlok of the group,
Yeah.
really like just detached from reality.
Yeah, he's been doing this for so long. His brain has become mush, basically. Yeah. I like that character a lot.
But yeah, coming back to Creature, I love that we go into this as Creature, but it's called The Titan Find, which so many sci-fi movies, like they'll get like a release and then like immediately afterwards, like, all right, let's change the name. No one's watching this,
Yeah. I was going to mention that as we were doing the preamble to this episode, but I didn't want to like make it confusing for people to find the movie. Yeah, it does have a secondary title, or like not a secondary title, but like a original title that they've changed, or maybe Creature was the original title that they changed and then went back to. I'm not sure the history on it exactly, but yes.
What I'm guessing is that it was originally The Titan Find, and then they released it, and then no one watched it because the title it didn't grab you enough. It's like, what is that? So they probably just renamed it to Creature. It's like, oh, okay, we know what that is. That's Alien. We're gonna go see that.
Did you think there was anything more to the aspect of like Germany versus USA? Because initially I didn't like the title comes up and it gives you the little blurb right before the movie comes up where it explains that these are two competing industrial capitalists that are, exploring the deep recesses of space for rare commodities, basically rare resources. It was like specifically one's a German company and one's a USA company. And immediately I'm like, oh, well, maybe there's like a political intrigue aspect of this. And it doesn't really seem like there is. And that was very disappointing for me.
So it looks like there's 3 different crews, because the one we see at the very beginning, like the opener, the teaser, or whatever, those are clearly 2 American guys talking. They don't even try to have German accents.
Well, they're not. They're part of NTI, and they say that later in the film.
Yeah, so that's NTI, the US group, and there's like Richter Dynamics.
That's the German group.
Like Hans's character, like him and his like 22 shipmates, their ship was the Titan, and that's the one that has all the bodies and everything.
And the bombs on it and stuff.
Yeah, and he's got a bomb on there. And it's in English, but I guess they were trying to like maybe make it clear that in this future, timeline, we're out in space, but we're not the only ones. We can't really trust who else is out here, digging into like this moon and what they might have found or dug up or whatever.
I didn't like how Hans's character is introduced like molesting a woman casually, and the movie doesn't really like talk about that at all. It just happens.
He breaks in and like immediately goes to like Bryce's like bedroom and just grabs her, and it's like, that's what, no one responds to that later on. And then like or not Bryce, it was
I thought it was Bryce.
No, he grabs Bryce later on when they're outside the ship. He assaults 2 separate people.
Really? Fuck.
Yeah.
I must have missed that. Damn.
Oh no, wait, I think it was Bryce twice. What the hell?
Yeah, I think because he follows Bryce out, because he grabs on her. And he's like, oh, I see you like guns. What else are you interested in?
That's right. She's got the gun room. Yeah.
Yeah, because she has guns and nobody else on the ship does. And then later, when they're like splitting up, he's like, I'll go with Bryce because I've already fucking molested her.
They definitely make him just out to be a real scummy, nasty guy. As if he wasn't already gross enough. At one point, he's playing like a whole 5 minutes. He's talking while he's eating, and you can just see everything in his mouth chowing down on like, I don't know, some In-N-Out or something. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, I don't understand. I guess I just wanted more of a comeuppance for him for being a weird molesty guy.
They might have just been trying to, this was what, like 1985. So maybe they're just trying to saddle the whole gross post-World War II German villain guy. Yeah, and then he's also gonna casually grope women while he's out there. The actor Klaus Kinski plays the German guy, Hans Hoffner, and he's most notable for playing Dracula in the Nosferatu, the vampire movie, the one directed by Werner Herzog. He's also in Fitzcarraldo as Fitzcarraldo, also by Herzog. He plays like predatory characters pretty regularly. He's played like Dracula in other movies too.
For the record, in case you were getting your britches a little too, up on how correct you were, there was a black character in the film. David Moses plays the mission coordinator.
Oh, what Mission Control? That's right.
Yeah.
They've got like a space station that's on for like a minute.
Yep, and he's there, just adding that little dab of color to this fucking movie.
That whole space station goes up, right? Like, because the ship crashes into it.
Absolutely, yes.
We don't see it blow up, but like it's heavily implied that, like,
we do see it blow up because it shows the ship like flying at it and then a big sparkly explosion. So we do see it. We just don't see it from their perspective. We don't see them dying, but we do see the ship and then the ship that they're trying to have on board, but it's piloted by a dead guy, fly right into it, which I did really like that scene, like showing them trying to accept this, retrieve this upcoming ship and trying to contact them like, hey, why are you not slowing down? Da, 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 da. And then it shows the image and it's like clearly like almost like a silhouette of a skeleton kind of.
So like a rotting body or something.
Yeah, I thought that looked great. I don't know why. I remember thinking like, oh, this is actually kind of spooky looking and like scary. I like this. I also liked a lot of the user interfaces that they were using. I know they were probably like copy and paste over from Alien effectively because, it's cheaper to just use the same stuff. They used a sound effect from Star Wars at one point, just randomly. I heard it and I was like, what the fuck? That's like the sound of a blaster going off or something from Star Wars. Like, why is that?
I definitely heard that. I think that was I think maybe when they're like picking up or lifting off.
I think they were entering orbit and like they transitioned to show the ship like entering into the planet's orbit and like, all right, activate the boosters, and it just goes pew! And I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah, it was very much that blaster.
And it sucks because like technically there's no reason you can't use the blaster, but now like everyone has heard that sound a bajillion times.
Yeah. They reuse that same blaster sound everywhere. Well, in Wars canon at least.
Creature had no control over that, so they just used a sound they thought was appropriate. It's fine. Did not age well. I think everything about this movie didn't really age very well.
There were some funny parts though. I love that like at the very beginning, like those two astronauts, like they find this egg. They're like, hey, look, this thing's super ancient. And oh, I think I saw something move in there. Why don't you put your bare butt on it?
Why don't you fucking treat this thing like an office building copier machine and just slap that ass on it?
God. Like, no. Why don't you do it? It's like, oh my God.
Oh, the back and forth there is fucking genius. It almost felt like, how when Prometheus came out, you remember Prometheus?
Yeah, I saw it.
As a guy who tries to enjoy movies, I'm watching it and I'm liking a lot of this stuff here, and I'm ignoring a lot of the like petty small things that a lot of other people would argue ruined their immersion. Oh, they're the smartest and bravest scientists ever, and they took their helmets off after all their machines told them that they could breathe in this atmosphere. What a crazy, stupid, dumb idiot scene that ruined the entire film for me. This movie has those scenes in it constantly.
I can't remember which one. I think Beth's the one who like runs out of the of her ship with her helmet off. It's like, oh, I can't breathe now. And it's like, yep.
Yeah, you're an astronaut. You should know the protocol of like you put the helmet on before you leave the airlock. There's like a million examples of this, and that opening scene almost feels like they're lampooning that, which to me, I'm going to take it as that. If to me, a lot of these scenes where Beth doesn't put her helmet on or so on and so forth, they're funny to me. I think they're funny. I think they're poking fun at the genre.
I mean, it's definitely poking fun at it because like the first scientist says, you know what, whatever's in there, it's probably going to be real pissed and real angry and real hungry. It's like, what kind of scientist are you?
Yeah, I wrote that line down to bring it up later. He says, what kind of scientist are you, in response to him like having all these protests, and he just says okay, and then starts doing what he's being told and what he was arguing against. Like God damn. The name of the ship for the Americans was the Shenandoah. If you're not familiar, the Shenandoah is a river that is referenced in Country Roads, a song in not Prometheus, but the very next film, Alien Covenant. They sing the whole song basically as like a moment that's supposed to be kind of heartwarming for the audience before all the crazy horror shit starts happening. And so I think it's really interesting that Shenandoah shows up here, and it's like Shenandoah River, Blue Ridge Mountain, West Virginia, like That is either a weird coincidence or an incredibly deep cut from Alien Covenant.
Maybe it is a deep cut to it. This movie exists in that sort of monster in space whole subgenre, even though like they're trying to like poke fun at it while they're making the same mistakes. It's it's a late night creature feature. Like, what do you really expect? It's a slasher film, but it's set in space, and yeah, I mean, like if you'd watched Alien and wanted more of the same, then this would scratch that itch.
There are a lot of movies in certain genres where we were just spoiled for choice at a certain point in history. Like if you wanted to watch like coming of age movies where various kids learn how to better themselves and their relationships with others by playing a sport specifically, that's a very specific ask in the year 2023. But in the 1990s, you had a million options, right? There were just so many movies about boy, oh boy, I'm unsure about how to like connect with others and make friends and all these other things. Maybe I should start playing pick any sport. You can find a movie about that.
Yeah, I think mostly the ones that come to my mind are like Sandlot and Mighty Ducks,
So those are some of the popular ones, but you can find like movies in this exact plot synopsis that are B movies, just like Creature, where it's like, yeah, it's not Mighty Ducks, it's not The Sandlot, it's not going to have that same amount of charm or wit to it, but it's that if you want it. Like, what is it? Little Giants was a good one. What I'm getting at is just like nowadays we do sort of get this, but it's not as prevalent. Like it doesn't happen for like 10 years straight, which is probably for the best because basically major studios have just started doing that themselves where they're like, wow, Iron Man did really well. Let me just make Iron Man for the next 15 fucking years.
Yeah, well, there are those like direct to video ripoffs that almost every movie has. Like as soon as like any like blockbuster comes out, usually like for the next 2 years, you're gonna see a whole bunch of like straight to DVD versions of that. The ones where they just change the names like slightly. Like there'll be like an Avengers, but there's like I don't know, like a Avengers.
Instead of Pacific Rim, they had Atlantic Rim, I think.
Yeah. Like your grandma brings the video over, like, look what I found in the $5 bin. That's you're gonna find that.
And Creature is a very competent version of that, by the way. This isn't like, oh, grandma, you got me Creature instead of Alien, and then you watch it and you're like, is this even a movie? Holy shit.
It's watchable. It doesn't feel like it drags. I mean, even though it's very predictable, it's a slasher. Like they're going to separate everybody. There's gonna be lots of people pairing up. I noticed like throughout it, it's like, oh, okay, oh, they're together. Okay, sure, they're together now.
Was there any bit of it that was just like standout, excellent, oh my god, jaw-dropping good for you?
There were a lot of lines which I feel like were basically cut and paste from other movies. Like Perkins at one point, the guy who was I think he's like Ferris Bueller's dad in Ferris Bueller's Day Off. They're like looking at some stuff on the planet. It's like, this stuff is gonna be worth a fortune. It's like, only if we make it back. And it's like, yeah, that's clearly like a lot of these sci-fi horror movies like that. There's always the one guy who's there. He's the company guy. He's like out to get rich, and meanwhile people are dropping like flies. A lot of Hans's lines are so wild and so weird. Even though he's like a despicable character, like his lines are the only ones that are really memorable. Like, he's talking about the bodies on that planet are like they come from a collection of life from all over the galaxy, like a child's butterfly collection.
Yeah, I was gonna say that butterfly collection line is lit.
I was not expecting it.
It's a good use of like metaphor because that is kind of what it is. Children collecting dead animals and this horrifying monster collecting dead animals. Like, yeah, it's really good.
It's good special effects. I mean, like not like legendary, but like I think someone gets like their face peeled straight off at one point.
That is, for me, by the way, that is my like holy shit, jaw-dropping, wonderful scene that just blew my fucking brains out. That whole sequence with John like trying to capture the doctor and then getting her, and then the other guys show up to investigate. They're struggling with him, and one dude just blows his entire fucking head off.
Yeah. Oh, and speaking of good lines, Wendy Oliver, who's like the doctor of the group, she's with John, and at this point we know that he's got like the monster on his head. We know he's like being possessed, and he's like, yeah, let's go together, and you can give me a checkup on the way. And she's like, I have a secret. I'm actually a biophysics doctor. I'm not like a real doctor. He's like, oh yeah, and John's like, oh yeah, don't worry, I have a secret of my own. And she's like, what's that? And he doesn't answer her.
He says, oh, we're here.
yeah. He doesn't answer her, and he goes off into the dark room, and I'm like, oh my god, really?
He's like, oh, we're here. And she's like, oh, okay. And he's like, oh, gosh, the lights are off. You just stay here 1 second. Goes into the dark room, and she's like, John, is everything okay in there? And he's like, oh, yeah, I'll have him on in a second. You just go ahead and come on in. And she fucking does.
It was both unsettling and hilarious, because you know what's going to happen. It's not like a question. It's just a matter of when and where it's going to come from. Yeah, a lot of bodies hanging from the ceiling, too.
So I felt like, and I'm not trying to, be reductive about this movie, even though that's kind of a lot of what we've been doing here. I felt like the alien and creature is kind of a mix of Predator and Alien a little bit.
Yeah, we get like that POV where it's sort of like, I don't know, it's not like body heat, but it's sort of like it's scanning their body heat, which very much reminds me of Predator.
A different kind of vision and the upside down people, and
I think that's the point. It's also got red eyes.
Yeah, it does have red eyes when it's in the hallway and it's like walking at them. And then later I think it does too when it's like right up on the dude, and he like, by the way, oh my, another scene that just fucking blew my fucking head off too. He sees the monster, he's like tries shooting at it and misses or whatever the fuck. So he runs up, grabs the top of the railing, and then double kicks it.
You know what? I think I might have missed that. That's cool. That's cool.
I was like, this is so fucking rad. Like, that's the kind of thing that, like, in the writer's room, somebody would be like, all right, so he's got to ditch the gun and go and have, like, a fist fight with the thing. How does he do it? And some asshole's like, I don't know. He, like, jumps up, does a gymnastics move, and then kicks it with both of his feet in the face. And somebody's like, no notes, don't change a damn thing. Perfect.
There's another good line where they're trying to figure out how to kill the thing. And so they're just brainstorming, and Beth Sladen's there, and she's like, I saw a movie once where a group of people are trapped on an ice station, and there's a carrot from another planet, and the other guys are just like burst out laughing. It's like, no, listen, they kill it by electrocuting it. We could electrocute it. And it's like, that's great. I love that no one here is equipped to handle any type of alien attack, but at least someone watches movies, and they're going to get an idea from a movie to solve their current situation.
I know that you haven't watched a lot of the episodes of the podcast, but there is sort of a running gag from season 1 where whenever we watch older movies, for some reason, blue lightning special effect comes up, and we have this guy on the podcast every now and again, and he just loves that blue lightning special effect. It's his favorite fucking thing, and we got it in this movie, and we got a lot of it in one scene. Usually you get like a little bit of blue lightning, not a whole lot, but it was on screen for quite a bit of time. This was like a debut performance for whoever does the like animation for blue lightning and the CGI for blue lightning in these 1980s sci-fi films, and it actually looked pretty good.
There's a good 10 seconds where it's the alien in the dark hallway and he's just lit up.
Which gives us one of the best visuals of the alien's entire body in the entire film.
Yeah, that's when it really comes across as like a Godzilla type.
But look, it looks really good. I would say that's one of the creative ways to show the alien and like its more detailed features and things and how it like works and whatnot is through that. That's usually something that's sort of reserved for like a comedic bit. So I could see that being part of like, oh my God, Creature is such a good satire of the 1979's Alien, somebody could see that bit in it and think of it as being like a joke, because like the way that they catch the creature in the end is basically like a Scooby-Doo trap.
Oh yeah, because so the guy who's been mostly like the company man this entire time, Perkins, is like, hey, you know what? I'm gonna take one for the team. I'm gonna lure the alien while you rescue Beth. And he lays out like a net and like right over like I guess where like a hatch is. He sets a little bomb timer for 30 seconds and he waits.
He gives that golden line where he finds the net and he starts setting it up and he's like, I think I found a way for us to capture Tall, Dark, and Handsome. And I'm like, this is a comedy, right? But that like being struck by lightning and then it's showing like the skeleton and like a silhouette of your like of your body, but like the skeleton is what gets lit up by the lightning. That's what they do with the creature, and I could see someone reading that as a comedic bit, but they do a pretty good job of keeping the tension, either through like the music or the set design or whatever. It's all very dark. I'm sure whoever did the cinematography was like, you guys are gonna have to turn off like all the lights like all the time, because with the lights on, it looks terrible.
So there's supposed to be like 2 crews, and I feel like we didn't get much of a 2 crews. Like it was basically just Hans and like the American group.
We got the outline we set up where the first crew got there and they were mauled and maimed and whatever, and we got one survivor from the original crew. I did like how they gave Hans a different astronaut costume. You know, his spacesuit is different than their spacesuits, you know what I mean?
I didn't notice it, but yeah, that would make more sense. Yeah, he would have like a different suit.
And I really loved how their spacesuits had like functioning LEDs in the front to like illuminate their faces.
Yeah, like the astronaut getup was actually pretty well done. I mean, like you could see their face inside it. They were like well lit. At one point, like there's like blood on the helmets. And that sort of like adds the tension and everything.
Remember the scene where they're like, "Oh, Beth is that could be Beth at the door," and he's like, "Wait, shouldn't we not go there because it could be dangerous and like we don't want to let anything in from outside?" And the dude's like, "I'm not going to leave Beth out there." And it's like, wow, I love how they keep doing that, where one person is like clearly in a movie and the other person is giving like the rational argument to the legitimate like scientist or just person with their head on a swivel. You know what I mean?
Yeah. The captain is like, I'm not leaving anyone behind, and the company guys constantly like, listen, we can't risk it, you know?
I don't know if it's just because I'm living in a post-Prometheus argument world and I'm the kind of person who disagrees with the like, oh, a scientist did a thing I don't agree with because I know the full outcome of their actions and therefore like I understand. Hindsight is in 2020, so I know that like bad things will happen to them if they take their helmets off, so on and so forth. I don't agree with that. I think that it's fine for a scientist to use his science to understand that something is safe, and that this is why scientists handle liquid nitrogen with their bare hands, because they know it's safe.
It was annoying just how unprofessional they were about a lot of things, but it also didn't seem like they like, a lot of times they're talking about like we're not really equipped for this. It seemed like they were on a different mission and then they just got called in to seek out like this vessel. I don't know. It don't seem like they're the professionals for this job. There was no one there who was like a specialist on aliens or even just like what kind of instructions they would need to operate this German vessel.
The doctor is a biologist and less of an actual medical doctor, and so that's kind of the were we well equipped for this? And they brought a security officer, and when they ask like why do we have a security officer, they're just like never mind, idiot, like fuck off, stop asking us questions, because we want one. So I do think the movie does its due diligence in explaining that like the company man knows that this is a potentially dangerous mission. You know, we have a bunch of artillery on the ship. We brought a security officer. Our doctor's not a doctor. They're like a biologist of some kind, a space biologist too, not like a Earth biologist, but like a space biologist. There are sprinkles of it throughout where it does seem like they came very well equipped for this job, even if everyone else is like, oh, we're just here to go and like note what the previous group found, but then they exploded or whatever. You know, okay, why do we have a security officer? And the answer is, you don't get to know. Leave me alone.
And Bryce does seem, other than just having like a shitload of guns, she's also got like a tranquilizer at some point because John is freaking out after he finds Susan dead and she gives him like a tranquilizer. So they were a little bit prepared. There's sort of things that sort of like stand out as like really weird. Like I can't get over the fact that when Hans is like in the room with them and he's like munching down some food, it looks like he's got like a hamburger wrapper and like a soda from like some fast food place.
Yes.
I mean, is there an Arby's on Saturn's moon? Like, what's going on here?
Okay, hold on. There is no evidence we have that this isn't like. You ever watch Demolition Man?
Yeah.
How in the future they have the fast food wars, and now like Taco Bell just owns everything.
Oh, okay. So it's like the Shenandoah is like sponsored by Wendy's or something. It's like a little food dispenser, and it just shoots out like little double burgers or whatever.
I'm just saying, if they had done that, if we like comb through this movie later on and we go through every little scene, you know, second by second, and we just frame by frame pick this bitch apart, and we find like a little McDonald's logo over their microwave, done. It is one of the greatest satires of all time. Perfect. 12 out of 10.
There were some really funny parts. So when the doctor's like in the dark room and Davis and Perkins like run in because they hear her screaming, her head is like bitten clean off. Oh my god!
As if it was like sliced by like a very heavy sword.
It was sort of like how praying mantises sort of like chew, but like it just chewed the head right off.
Or like the part where they bring Beth into the I'm not going to leave Beth out there. They bring her in and she's carried by Hans.
Yeah.
Like Hans is carrying her. So they like immediately go to start like checking and making sure Beth is okay. And Hans is just there with like a broken astronaut helmet and he's got blood all over him and he's clearly like some kind of a zombie monster and they just completely ignore him. They don't give a single fuck.
Yeah. He waits them to check on her. You know, it's like, oh, okay, you're good. All right, now I can attack.
Now, guys, I'm a little pissed. He's mad they didn't attend to him. That's what it was. He wasn't being controlled by the alien. He was just upset that they didn't even ask. Kind of rude, guys. Okay.
So like when these aliens take them over, they still seem to keep like their personality, or at least like, their mental state pretty well. Because he's like going after Beth, and he's like so pretty. He's still perving like even after like he's gone monster.
To be fair, if I was in the writing room for this movie, if I was told like, hey, how do we do this? I think it's more interesting to have them not as like brainless zombies, but rather as like they're under control, but it's not like perfect. I think that's more interesting to me for some reason. And all of filmmaking is about making these like little choices here and there. And whenever you see movies make those little choices, it can really elevate them to something more interesting. And I would have liked to see them lean into this a little bit more. And they kind of did, like with Susan, coming to John and asking him to like, oh, come help me. Those little like flares of drama and intrigue and mystery are incredibly interesting, but like they could have leaned into it a little bit more and maybe had the first time where like the guy is like saying things like, oh, pretty, and everyone's convinced that he can't do any like deeper thinking than like his basic instincts. And then later when a character like Susan, who we have like an emotional attachment with because she's John's love interest, now she's like articulating full sentences and asking for help and everything. And they're like, no, we have these monsters that we're trying to fight. We can't. She could be like Hans was. And he's like, no, she's speaking in full sentences. I need to go out there and help her. She's clearly still well, but like she's not doing great.
When Susan came back, she was like full like haunted specter. She's outside the window and everything. Like we know there's no atmosphere.
It might be part of the lighting also doesn't help in this scene. It's like that haunting blue. So it does seem like she's a ghost almost. I felt the same way.
Like she lures him out there. He's seen her like get attacked. Like she's the first one to go on the ship, and we see that whole dragging scene and everything. But he's distraught and he's been tranquilized, and he goes after her, and she like disrobes and then like immediately starts kissing him to death. And we see her like put that little bug creature in his face or something.
I also liked how consistently the monster would like face the camera in a way where they couldn't see the blood, and then as soon as the character turned their head, you could see all the blood on the side of their head. That was kind of funny to me. I don't know why. I think that's kind of silly.
Oh yeah, when John's like, oh yeah, I got a crick in my neck, and that's why I'm just facing this direction this entire time. And then the moment the video closes, we see the little brain sucker on his brain.
And then later they're like, oh hey, why do you have the bandage on your head? And he's like, oh man, the engineering room's crazy over here. Germans, I don't know. But hey, we're kind of coming up on that time. Were there any last things you want to say about the movie, or anything you want to say before we sign off? We see for ourselves out of here.
You know what? Whatever technology they thought was gonna be worth a fortune, I love that it's just neon lights behind glass with music playing. Basically, like some Spencer's gifts that they had on this planet. It's just nondescript technology that they were a little not specific, but we knew what we were getting, and they refer to it in the movie. They're like, yeah, it's a carrot monster from another planet. Don't laugh. It's scary.
The technology they find is just like it's an MP3 player. They've been using CDs for like centuries now, and they're like, oh my god, an MP3 player, whoa,
the giant jukebox.
It's Spotify. The technology's just Spotify. We thought this was dead many centuries ago, but we found it. Oh, it's worth dying for.
Oh, and the whole thing with Bryce gives Beth her book back. The ship blows up, and she's like, hey, here's your book. I made sure you got it back.
They had that line where she's like, oh, I thought we were supposed to be having fun. Is this fun? And he's like, ask me later. And then she does ask him later. I liked that.
They still managed to be flirty after losing the majority of their like team. Like this whole adventure is just foreplay to them.
That is like one of the worst tropes in all of fiction. And then after watching everyone they came on this mission with die a gruesome and horrifying death, will come and ask me in my quarters later. Ha! I'm gonna have sex with you. And she smiles and is happy about it. Like, what the? And Bryce is in the room too.
We didn't do the one-liner. There's a great one-liner at the end. So Perkins got like, he's got like the timer, and the creature hits him. They open the hatch and he falls through, and the alien comes back and it's still got like the bomb on his chest. And Davis is like, it didn't go off. And then Bryce, after being gone for like half the film, shows up and says, oh yes it did, and then shoots it and explodes. So Bryce gets like the cool one-liner.
Yeah, after putting in no work, Bryce just shows up and is like, fuck you, right to hell, you fucking scum-sucking bastard. classic. I did like that they kept that in from Alien, like the women are like strong badasses who can handle themselves. I liked that. That was nice. We didn't get any multi-diversity really, other than like the one German character, I guess. We did get some pretty empowered women, which is nice. And like women with flaws too. Like they weren't just like a, you know, a perfect badass. She's like a total badass, but also she gets lost sometimes and it's kind of hard to navigate this ship. I don't know.
I think she was reading the entire time. I think that's why she returns the book. She got engrossed. You know, it was a really great novel, and she's like, yeah, you know, oh, I should probably help my friends out.
Honestly, I think that's a better joke. It's a better joke than I got lost. Like I was looking for you guys and I saw that book, and honestly, it's a really good read. People should check it out. Looks at the camera.
I know, right? Scared to death. Wow. I wonder if they made a movie about it. Roll credits.
The director's just shilling super hard. There's a reason he only really got one big movie after this one. Like fucking Christ. It's a better movie than it has any right to be honest with you.
It was it was worth killing an afternoon on. Yeah.
Well, we'll call it here, and there'll be more music you can listen to here in just a few seconds. You can listen to the outro music, and that'll be fun and nice and good.
Well, I enjoyed this.
All right, good. Go team, and yes it did go off because I'm shooting it now and there's an explosion and I saved the day and I got lost and that's why it took me so long to get here. Okay, bye.
Yeah.